Alrighty, guys. Hopefully, I didn't lose too many of you. For some reason, YouTube was not letting me log into the existing link that I had up. I'm not really sure what's going on there, so I'm going to try to redirect some people and try to get them onto this live stream. Let's get things set up here. All right, yeah, looks like we're good to go. 10-4. How's everybody doing tonight? Just let me know if you can hear me clearly on the live stream. And we'll get started with talking about a few things. All right, Ford for Life, built for speed. Thank you for checking in there, letting me know. Joaquin Campos, thanks for joining us. Greg Watkins, all right, we're good to go. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Usually we set a broadcast time when we're going to be on and what the settings are and everything, and then we can just log right in and select that video and turn it on. And for some reason, it's not working. So I had to make a new one real quick, and we'll have to update all that later on as far as the descriptions and everything like that. But hopefully everybody can get to the link, or that link works, or it sends them to this one, because I don't know if it's going to work or not. Alex Flores joining us. Got to see him earlier today. He's looking really good. He's a little banged up right now. He's got a bad hip flexor or something like that, but he should be back and rolling here pretty soon. Jeremiah Camp, thanks for joining us, man. Bimini Blue LX. Imagine we know what color your car is. Thanks for joining us. Couple of things we're going to cover tonight. Some product announcements, nothing really burning that is a huge groundbreaking thing. We'll update you a little bit on the harnesses and so forth. Some of our speed drive stuff that we got coming up. But something that happened interestingly here this afternoon, we started seeing some pictures online of a drawing. Looks like some sort of a Ford patent drawing, and it looks like it's a Coyote engine sitting basically atop a transfer case of some sort, or a front axle. And Douglas Gonsalves, nice to see him in. Alex Cadell, 2000 MCR. What's going on, guys? But that whole powertrain is hooked up to what appears to be a DCT. So we started talking about that today because anything new along those lines is pretty interesting. And we'd always thought that maybe, just maybe, between the GT350 and the GT500, some of their early concept drawings, and some of the stuff that they put on those cars, including the front hubs on the GT350 that are splined, were interesting. And some guys, and including us, maybe thought there was a chance we're going to get an all-wheel drive, maybe an EcoBoost all-wheel drive GT500 with a DCT, which would have been a lot like a GTR in a sense, Mustang version, but you know, a GT500 name, V6 engine, maybe it doesn't work out. But based on those drawings that we saw today, it breathes new life to the potential that we may end up with an all-wheel drive Mustang. Now, how much of a Mustang is it really going to be? Basically, what we know, Rob Snow, thanks for joining us, man. Basically, what we know is that the new generation of chassis for the Mustang is probably going to be something that's shared or used underneath an Explorer or other SUVs. We know of the Mustang Mach-E, which is interesting enough. But Ford, I mean, I can remember working at the dealership, getting the monthly newsletter and the technology and stuff. They've been talking about using a chassis for multiple models that is interchangeable at the manufacturing level. So it's just like a skateboard that you can just bolt in different powertrains and different uses and then just drop a body on it, to the point where in that article, a little bit more far-fetched, that where if you needed an SUV for 3 years and then all of a sudden you needed a truck, you can just buy a different body and change it out. I don't think they're going to go to that, but potentially, since the Explorer shares chassis with Mustang coming up, could we end up with an all-wheel drive Mustang that is similar technology or shared technology with some sort of all-wheel drive Explorer? Um, I think the hopes are, just talking with everyone here, would be that we get a twin turbo V8 all-wheel drive Mustang. Uh, be interesting, but I'll be honest with you, I couldn't remember the last time there was a mass-produced twin turbo V8 anything other than in a supercar, and there's probably a really good reason for that in particular. I don't know if anything shaped and set up like a Mustang would really be a safe car off the production line with 800 horsepower or 800 foot-pounds torque from a twin turbo V8, and then we put a tune in it and it makes 1,000 horsepower, and guys are wrapping them around poles and killing each other, and there's no tire on the plant to hold it, kind of thing. So it's bad enough, like even the Skyline guys, we see them wreck at the track all the time, breaking stuff. So GTR guys in particular. Devin Darby, nice to see you, man. Alex Cadell, thanks for joining us. Yeah, Alex Cadell says, I'm down for an all-wheel drive Mustang with a Coyote and manual trans with hybrid front-wheel drive. Well, honestly, I think we're going to get a hybrid, gas-electric hybrid performance car very, very soon. The DCT, I think, is something that, I think it's going to be something that's here to stay. Ford's been anchoring and hinkering to get away from having an auto manual option for years. The CVT transmission was going to be something, if you look back into the computers of the old 2-valve and 4-valve cars from the mid 90s, late 90s, there's actually spark cut in the tuning. I was told that by a couple different tuners and so forth. So obviously there was thoughts about that stuff even back into the 90s, and we really haven't seen it come to fruition. The CVTs were kind of a failure in all the Tauruses and Focuses and stuff like that. And now we have the DCT stuff, and it seems to be a real player. It's built by a real, transmission company that Ford has a relationship in Tremec. So I think you're probably going to see, if anything, similar to Porsche, where a DCT option is standard. If you want a manual, it's going to be another $3,500, kind of like it was in the old days where you had to pay extra money to get an automatic. Because the standard transmission was going to be a manual. That's the baseline price. So maybe select models will have a manual. But I think DCT overall is going to be what they're going to go to make sure it's easier to warranty, easier to understand, easy to manufacture as far as making a lot of them. And then the cars are just going to end up being quicker and better and more efficient with that for fuel economy and all those things, which are going to be important. Lee, it's good to see you, man. Lee Ray. I don't know if you guys know who Lee Ray is. If you watch the Foxcast, Caleb Richards, he's got the black convertible that they just finished building around October, end of last year. They just got a dyno not too long ago with their guys, and it's got a Gen 3 Whipple, I believe on a Gen 2 power plant or Gen 1. Lee can correct me on that in the chat there. But, it made a heap of power. It uses our speed drive brackets for the Whipple Gen 3, which we'll make an announcement here in a little bit about the Gen 5 stuff as we're working towards that. Ivan Corda is with us tonight. Ivan, if you guys don't know who Ivan is, he writes for FordMuscle.com. Him and I were chatting last night, and Lee just corrected me. It is a Gen 2 Coyote. He's got another one in the works right now with Dover and those guys. It's a coupe that he already had. It was Coyote swapped already. He's putting another Gen 3 blower on it, and we might be converting him from 6 rib to 8 rib on that setup with some of the newer stuff we came out with for the Edelbrock and the Gen 5 Whipple. But back to Ivan. Ivan actually is building a Coyote Swap project truck that we might be working with on some products, our speed drive stuff, our pulleys and so forth, to help him get that situated. That's going to be highlighted on FordMuscle.com. Pretty cool build. Obviously, if there's any links or anything like that, Ivan, that you can post up to the project, post them up in the chat so these guys can latch onto it and take a look at it with you. But thanks for checking in. Got Alex Garcia with us here. Yep. Alex actually has a question here, Mr. Garcia. I have a 2014 Mustang 5.0. I'm having a clutch problem. I changed the throb bearing and still have the same problem. Is the master cylinder the pedal? Is it the master cylinder? The pedal has no pressure and doesn't come back by itself. It's possible, but I would probably say if the clutch isn't brand new, probably have a bad pressure plate, I would guess. If it's not recovering completely and you replace the throwout bearing, which is most likely what you described there, the sleigh cylinder, because it's hydraulic, unless it's caught somewhere, or maybe you got the wrong sleigh cylinder potentially, because there are different length ones, you will you may end up with a pressure plate that's probably won't work, that weak and not working. Caleb's here from Foxcast Media. Thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for coming on. I think Mr. Flores had a few questions there. He sneaked in while my earlier address. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to put a Godzilla in the all-wheel drive Explorers and Mustangs and whatever they call them, Fairmont. Maybe they'll bring the Fairmont back for you. But probably won't be doing the Godzilla, mainly because it's probably not going to be a fleet vehicle unless the police really want to have extra weight on the nose. Alex Flores, are you saying the GT500 guys can't drive? I don't want to say the GT500 guys can't drive. I think the GT500, when you start adding power on all the 07 to 14 cars, is a pretty hard car to drive, in particular, do it successfully, like 0 to 60, that kind of stuff. But that's why automatics really work out well. Really picks up a lot of time and lowers the 60 foot in those cars. But it's only if that stuff's important to you. If rolling burnouts through 150 miles an hour is your gag, keep that manual in there. Do it no problem. You're just going to have to be happy running those 11s and 12s unless you get really serious with the setup. A DCT would be a nice upgrade, but I don't know if that's automatic or manual. You guys tell me if a DCT qualifies as an automatic or a manual. But I know I want one, period. So, Nick Myers here with us. I was just chatting with Nick on some belt issues he was having with a setup of ours. We got it squared away. And Ivan's mentioning there that the first story on that truck's coming out in May. So it should be cool. We're going to work together on that and see if we can get them some parts, get them the right stuff the first time. Help, hopefully, educate a lot of people on what to do with their Coyote swaps using our product, especially on a cool build like that. Let's see here. Got a lot of stuff going on there in the chat. But anyway, as far as this all-wheel drive Mustang stuff, I mean, obviously, anything they come out with in those cars, we're going to look at potentially for swap stuff, and I would hope that Ford Racing continues to develop parts as well. We're ready to get some of that stuff figured out and put into our older cars and try to apply it. The thought of a Coyote powered DCT backed all-wheel drive Fox body, how does that sit with you? I've always liked the old Cyclones and Typhoons from the day. I imagine it'd be pretty cool. I like handling performance. All-wheel drive usually not the most sought after thing in a road racing setting, but an autocross, look out. I mean, the Subarus and Focus RS are amazing for that stuff. So it'd be interesting to really apply that to a lot of older Fords, maybe even F-150s. Who knows, man? It's kind of weird to think about it, but I think we may have something like that in the future, or even electric swapping some of these older vehicles as well. So pretty interesting to think about having that as a potential option moving forward. It seems like there's almost more of a chance of that happening than getting massive amounts of aftermarket support for the Godzilla V8, but we'll see. It looks like things are looking a little bit up on the Godzilla, and maybe there's some eking out there, and there might be some support parts-wise, and we'll be taking a look at it as well. Caleb from Foxcast Media asks, are the E-Force kits ready to ship? Yes, they are. There's actually a special on those. You get $500 off of the blower kit right now. We're going to be updating our website tomorrow on that. That ends on the 15th. So if you're looking at a supercharger setup, particularly the E-Force setup for a Gen 1, 2, or 3 Coyote swap, we have an extra $500 off of the listed price. And our bracket kits, as far as our speed drive, power steering solution stuff, that's all in stock, ready to ship if you already have your E-Force ready to go. Chris Mooneyhan, what's up, Frank? Thanks for all the help you gave me on my swap. No problem at all, Chris. Thanks for reaching out to us. Thanks for buying it and getting all the parts that you got from us in particular. We like being here and helping guys through a lot of problems. We we work with not only a lot of people individually, but we work with a lot of shops. And the shops are really appreciative because although they're experts in everything that they do, a lot of these hot rod guys and street rod guys, they're not really immersed in later model Ford stuff. I mean, a Windsor. I mean, we talked about it last week on the on episode 2. You know, the Coyote is really the first engine since maybe the flathead Ford V8 that has crossed platforms regularly. And the flathead mainly did it because from of its day it was the number one V8, but it just looks so cool in the street rod hot rod. The Coyote has kind of taken that position from it, and this thing's crossing platforms. We talked about a couple of builds. The guys were with us in the chat last week that have put them in Firebirds, Grand Nationals, C10 pickups, you name it. It's been in there from airboats to twin turbo lake boats. So it's definitely there. I don't want to say it's better than the LS, not whatever. It depends on all the different factors that go into that conversation and so forth. But it's definitely crossed a lot of platforms now, and we're seeing it in all sorts of brand X vehicles. So it's pretty cool to see it. Renner 595959. Hey brother, doing a Coyote swap, Gen 3 swap in my wide body 88 coupe, and you have been helping a lot. Okay, yeah, no, well thank you, man. Thanks for including us in the build, and I'm glad that the tech that we put in the videos and what we do on the phone and via email is helping guys out and figure out what they're going to be doing with their swaps. We'll do a couple public service announcements here soon because I keep saying this and I keep getting the same emails, and I don't think these guys are listening to our channel, so maybe they're not getting it. But if you see somebody trying to buy a Gen 3 F-150 10R80 powertrain right now, just let them know there is no control pack for it yet. There is no wiring kit from us yet. We are actively waiting for the control pack from Ford Racing so we can do some testing with Gumby Saunders at a Texas Speed Lab Performance to see if we can get one working or what it's going to need per se. So hang tight. I'll update you guys weekly on that if I have to. But right now, you're not getting a control pack. There is no option. You can't send me a harness, that kind of stuff. And if someone tries to do it, I wish you best of luck. Hopefully they can get it squared away. It's something simple, but as of right now, I haven't heard anybody get it done and get it running and it's driving up and down the road, no issues. The Gen 3 stuff is having enough issues on its own in the control packs, potentially with tuning and so forth, that I don't know what's going to happen with the F-150 motors once we get to that stuff too. So Ford for life. Hey Frank, I have a 2014 GT manual and I'm planning on doing a Forge Gen 2 swap. Do you sell a kit for this including the MT82 wiring? Thanks. So you have a 2014 GT manual. I'm planning on doing a Forge Gen 2 swap. You may have to elaborate on that for me. Are you putting that powertrain, you're basically doing a swap into an older vehicle, a Coyote and so forth? If so, we do have Gen 2 control packs for the MT82. Manual transmission control pack will do that. If you're going to use an MT82 and a Fox body, you're going to have bigger fish to fry than the wiring. It's going to be the shifter. It's going to be the drive shaft that you really need to tackle. Drive shaft typically has to be custom because they're CV style and a slip yoke, and you have to measure that right height, full weight, so you can get the exact measurements over to a drive shaft manufacturer, or cut down an existing one-piece drive shaft and do a good job on that. The other thing on the shifter, not an easy fix there. Usually something custom, something from MGW. There's another company, big dollar stuff to try to even get it close to where you want to put it in the car. So those are the things to look out for there. If I'm missing anything in your question there, post in the chat and I'll answer there. You are putting a Gen 2 Ford block into a 14 GT. Okay, well, we don't have any forged internal kits. The closest we'll get to that is probably getting you a long block or a short block from Ford Racing, an Illuminator short block. If you're looking for a consistent solution to that, don't want a ton of downtime or any gray area, and your setup isn't really something that's going to be uber wild, that's really a good option to consider. Engine builders, as much as I love them and as much as they're needed out there, there is a lot of gray area with what they do. When you get into doing short blocks, one of the things we always did is we always sent the whole engine to whoever is going to do the engine build. If you're going to take on doing my short block and putting everything together in there and all that stuff is so vital and you're charging top dollar, I'd rather that person put the heads on, time the engine for me, and seal it completely. That way when it comes to me and I go to put it in the car, I don't have any gray area. If I fire it up and it's running like crap or makes a noise, he's not pointing the finger at me saying, hey, you timed it. Hey, you sealed it. Maybe you did something wrong there. Maybe you did this or that. No, everything came to me from you. So you, sir, tell me what's wrong, or I'll just take it out and drop it back off to you. So keep that in mind with anything engine building wise. There's usually no warranty. Support as far as when something goes wrong is really inconsistent, I would say. Some engine builders are great and they're there to help you and they want the engine back. Let's figure it out together. Some of them, they cash the check and it's a taillight warranty. As soon as you pull out of the parking lot, she's yours, or they're going to give you the old, hey, it's a race engine, it's supposed to smoke kind of thing. You don't want to hear that when you spend a bunch of money on that. So an illuminator engine kind of cuts through a lot of that stuff. If you can get an illuminator short block, put your heads on it. It's something you can probably do in a weekend, depending on how fast you work, and you don't have to wait and have all that downtime. If you got a good short block now, if you go that route, then you have that short block to sell it to somebody else or build with more time on your hands because you're back up and running already. So keep that in mind. Gumby Saunders is the man. He's coyote swapping the world. Yes, Gumby's a good guy. I like working with him. Really helpful as far as getting feedback from him, and he's building some really cool stuff out there. I'm hoping once we get things back on the road here after this virus is done derailing our lives, that we can get out to Texas, maybe get out to see you, Caleb, out in Tennessee as well. Looking at the schedule right now, I don't know where we're going to be at because I don't know when this stuff is going to clear up to be able to travel, or at least feel comfortable traveling. But it'd be nice to get out to that Bowling Green event for NMRA at the end of the year, that Holly Intergalactic Ford Festival, because not only is there drag racing, there's also autocross, and I like autocross. So it'd be cool to take our Coyote Swap Fox body out there and run around a little bit, meet some people from that region, and hang out for the weekend and so forth. Actually, we're talking with a customer earlier. His name's Rob Miller. He just bought a coupe that we built a couple years back for a guy by the name of Fred Blair. If you remember, that car was a silver coupe with a black stripe down the hood. And he had a Gen 1 engine, stage 3 cams, Cobra Jet, long tooth, maximum suspension front and rear, and it was stick. Crank up windows. Fred, we finished that car, and literally a month later, he drove it from Florida to California, back across the country to I think it was the 50th anniversary of the Mustang in Charlotte that happened. So he did that whole cross-country trek by himself with no AC, no heat, no power windows, and a 500 rural horsepower manual transmission coupe with skinnies in the front and some Mickey Thompson meats in the back. So good old Fred. He's still around. He's got a Roush 427 he's playing with now, but he sold the coupe and Rob Miller picked it up, and he lives in that Bowling Green area, and I'm happy he's got it. He says he's going to be racing this year, hopefully when the tracks open back up. Mike B, how well would a Circle D 3B converter and 315 gear work with a 4R200 hub S197 twin turbo car? Mike, I'm going to try to answer this question as best as I can. I'm not the big converter guy here at the shop, so I might have to pass you off to Jake and get some input from him on that combination. 3B, if I remember, I think that wasn't as loose as we ran them. There's been a lot of different combinations when it comes to converters, the twin turbo setups that I've been privy to. Honestly, when we get the call on a converter, we make a call at the Circle D and we throw everything by them and see what the latest information is and feedback that they've gotten to go ahead and get it back to the customer and make sure they're set up properly. If you can, email me at info@pbhperformance.com tonight, and I'll try to get you some more information on that combination. unless some of the guys in the chat can really can chime in. I know Alex is in there, and he can probably give you some more information on it. He says that 331s or 355s is best. Typically, with a 4R200, because that first gear is a 274, you're going to you have the ability to go to a higher or more aggressive gear. Since you're keeping the mechanical advantage on the transmission instead of transferring to the rear end, on the rear end instead of putting it on the transmission by lowering the gear all the way down to like a 260 something or a 315. You can get more aggressive with that rear gear and kind of play with it in the converter as well. So I think you're on the right track. But typically, yeah, we ended up with 331s and so forth. Mr. Nitro, Fox, I like your channel, bro. Hey, Mr. Nitro, thanks for joining us as well. Caveman Gaming, where can you get a Hydra Boost for Mustang Fox bodies? Hydra Boost, you can source them, Caveman Gaming, from 96 to 2004 Mustangs. And there is a company called Hydra Tech. Hydra Tech has a couple of Hydra Boost setups that they sell for the Fox bodies and so forth. And they work hand in hand with the power steering pumps that we have in our speed drives for the Coyote swaps in particular. So we use the power steering pump from the 96 to 04 cars. So if you go find a used 96 to 04 car and rip the Hydra Boost and the lines out, you're going to be able to reuse all that stuff as long as it's in good health with the power steering pump, the way it's laid out in the factory car in a Fox body. Reason being is we relocate the alternator to the top of the passenger side of the engine and put the power steering pump on the lower driver's side of the engine where it is from the factory on a modular 4 4.6, 5.4. So the lines will reach and connect. If not, Hydra Tech, I believe, has line kits and adapters and stuff like that to help you do it. We can help you outfit everything on the power steering pump. Let's see here. Mike B, Mr. Nitro, Nick Meyer, Caveman Game. Okay, plenty of guys sell it. Yep, everybody's answering Mr. Caveman now. Dan Roberts, any news on DCT swap for Coyote swaps? I've been using your guys' parts since 2013. My 96 Cobra Mystic swap car. Love the parts, and thank you, Frank, for the support. No problem, Dan. Thank you for choosing PBH and making yourself PBH equipped. Yeah. Hashtag. Mystic Cobra, huh? You don't let anybody near that car, do you? The paint on those is pretty special. As far as DCT stuff, I can tell you that DCT, we have them here. Development so far has been fairly slow. We have been in contact with a couple of companies that say they can help develop standalones for them. So we're actively pursuing that. And we're going to be looking at different combinations and things that we can do with those DCTs to make sure that they're available or as an option as soon as possible. Also, Tremec has promised to come up with some sort of aftermarket kit or combination to offer that to the aftermarket, but we don't know if that in particular is going to be something that happens now, later, 10 years from now, whatever. They got to get past releasing these transmissions and making sure they survive in the factory cars before they get onto the aftermarket stuff. So if we come out with something like that, I'm sure we'll tease you with pictures and hints here and there. But as far as fitment, I mean, we took some measurements on it. I think it's right on about the same dimension as the 6R80 from the bell housing face to the mounting point. And that's helpful because that means potentially existing Stifler's cross members and stuff like that can work. Drive shaft measurements are always going to have to be figured out, but controlling them and shifting them and stuff like that, that's stuff that really needs to be fine-tuned because that's an expensive piece and you're not just going to want any controller on there. We've seen, even with the 6R80s and what's probably going to happen with the 10R80, there will be controllers out there, but are they really 110% like a factory computer as far as controlling it? There's so many things that go into these transmissions. The DCT may be different, but the 6R80s, for example, we know there's standalone controllers out there, but if they fall short at any level, they can potentially hurt the transmission or give you, an end result that you're not expecting. The expectation with any Coyote swap is that it runs and drives like a factory car, and that should be the expectation. Period, because it's an obtainable goal. We know we can deliver that goal You know, the chassis might be different and it may ride differently, but as far as shifting, cold starts, warm, AC on, AC off, that kind of stuff, the expectation should really be this car should run just like a factory car. So if it falls short of that, it's kind of hard to call it a success. So I think with the DCT, we have to be patient. You don't want to be the first one at the trough because you may not like the taste. Guinea pigs, when it comes to being the first to have one, that's SEMA level stuff, and most of the cars at SEMA don't run. So don't gear everything based on what you see at SEMA, because we have actually gotten calls from companies that did all this weird, wacky stuff to get a car to SEMA and say it was in the car, but come to find out they pushed it into the building. They did all this hype, and they're here calling us trying to figure out how to unscrew what they did and get it fixed so they can actually drive the vehicle. So, be careful as far as what you go for there. Renner 595959. Thank you. Thank you for the support. I appreciate that. That'll help us grow the channel. Let's see here. Kate Mangani says, yeah, we bought your setup for the Coyote and a Mustang to build, but now I need the booster to make it all work. Hydra Tech might be the only company I know that has aftermarket components that you could probably make it work in there. If not, I see Nick was telling you that he has some stuff available. Just remember, any 96 to 04, I think the preference is 01 to 04 setups for donor vehicles. Plus, they're probably going to be a little bit newer. Thinking now that it's 2020, a 1996 Hydra Boost has some age on it, and those lines have some age on it, so keep that in mind as well. Also, if you need a reservoir solution for that, we do have a power steering reservoir bracket now that bolts up to the old engine lift pickup points on the driver's side and uses in the 96 to 04 Mustang reservoir on there. You can actually use the 05 to 10 as well if you drill a hole in the center. So keep that in mind as well, Caveman. The White Fox. I'm going with the 6R80 with a Gen 1 Mustang motor. Do you have to use the Gen 1 car truck 6R80, or can you use the Gen 2 as well? On the Gen 1 PCMs, we've seen very little issues with mixing and matching the generations of the transmissions. The Gen 1s aren't as sensitive to the calibration part of a transmission. It seems like the programming on it, if you're using like a Win 3 or Win 4 computer like we program, it pretty much works across the board. You can also use an F-150 or Mustang. When you flip that and you use a Gen 2 computer, we always recommend using Gen 2 transmission. The reason being, we have encountered some issues with calibration and performance when you try to put a Gen 1 transmission running off of a Gen 2 computer. You can't do that programming part of it unless you switch the valve body, and then, of course, it's a Gen 2 transmission. So that's really the only difference. There is another difference between Gen 2 and Gen 1 transmissions. It has to do with the bearing in the back of the transmission. Your flange that bolts the transmission, if you look at it, if you have a 6R80, it's sitting on the floor or something like that, grab it, you'll see it has a lot of end play. Ford really has zero input on how much play is allowable at that position. But we do know is they changed the case in Gen 2 and moving forward, and they added a double bearing for that flange. And that seems to tighten it up quite a bit. A lot of guys have attributed their drive shaft vibration from this end play. We have switched those cases, and they've continued to have drive shaft vibration. The reality of it is, depending on your drive shaft manufacturer, how long it is, your driveline angle, that vibration may not be as simple as that end play at the end of the transmission, because every single 6R80 has some. So no guaranteed smoking gun fix there as far as that goes. But as far as tuning, if you have a Gen 1 computer, I feel pretty comfortable using a Gen 2 6R80 behind that. If you have a Gen 2 PCM, try to use a Gen 2 valve body in your 6R80, hence a Gen 2 transmission. You can change the valve bodies out, so if you get a really smoking deal on a Gen 1 transmission, you can buy the valve body, switch it out, and you'll get a new calibration sticker and do that that programming sequence to make sure they're linked together. Dan Roberts, that would be awesome. The Mystic is quite the Franken Cobra. 12 Coyote, 13 GT500 TVS, 03 Cobra T56. Would love to throw a 2020 Shelby Transit. It would be killer, man. I'd like to see that happen. Hopefully we can get you set up with that at some point. It's an option for you. But it sounds like a killer build. Vincent Murdala just picked up a 10K mile Gen 1, just the motor, and have a 2006 Mustang GT. I just pulled a 3-valve. What all I need to get, still working on, yes, we're still working on that harness. He's asking about the 3-valve harness. We have completed a few of them. If you haven't already reached out to us, Vincent, reach out to us. I see here that you got an 06 right now. We're trying to do the ones for the 07, 09s because of some connector availability that we have. We will have an 05, 06 version. I think eventually we'll also have it for the Gen 2 engines as well. But definitely reach out to us. They are working. I rode in Christian's Celine Coyote swap car that we did the first harness on today. AC works. The car has a bunch of other issues that he's got to work through. It's gotten some clutch issues and so forth, but it could just be component stuff or maybe installation errors. I don't know. We'll see what happens. He shouldn't be going through clutches that quick. He's got some other stuff in the dashboard he's got to work on there, but car runs and drives just fine. F-150, S550. What's up, Frank? Thank you guys for the support. Great customer service to get my swap to finally fire up and idle. Keep it up. Well, you're welcome. I'm pretty sure I saw your build. You got an F-150 swap that you're tackling, and it looks pretty good, man. I'm glad to hear it's actually up and running and performing a little bit closer to what you are hoping for. Hopefully you're closer to getting it finished so you can drive it and start ripping it up a little bit out there. Please tag us in any photos and videos so we can keep tabs on it. Blue 99, I got a Coyote swap going in a new Edge Mustang, planning on twin turbos, not running AC. What speed drive should I grab? If you go to our naturally aspirated speed drives, in there is a module to build your kit, and there is an option to do AC delete, and it'll spit out a part number for you. So your options are going to be AC delete or sand and compressor or modular 4 compressor. Then your next set of options are going to be low profile power steering or standard power steering. Because you're working with let's see, a new Edge, you can use the standard power steering bracket. It will clear. You don't have to cut the sway bar mounts off. If you want a little bit of extra room, if you're running the exhaust manifolds forward, get the low profile version to give you about another inch of room between the the sway bar brackets and the power steering pump itself. That might tuck in a little bit more to be able to sneak by there. That part number should be PBH 1102 or 20. But if you use that module in the listing, it'll give you the part number. You don't have to memorize it like I try to do. But that should get you power steering. It'll relocate the alternator, and then it'll have a short belt for the alternator, and it'll eliminate the AC position. Let's see here. Matt Bow, 2003. When will the hot water tubes be back in stock? They are back here today. They came in this afternoon, and we'll be shipping out all the back orders tomorrow. So if you already have an order in, you're going to get yours shipping out tomorrow. If you haven't placed your order because it was on back order it tonight. That way we can ship it tomorrow for you. But we do have them back, and we got 100 more in process to keep up with the demand. And we may have a small update with those coming up soon, but it may not impact much of the stuff that we're doing on the Fox bodies and so forth like that. F-150, S550 says you should be rolling out this weekend. Nice, man. Mr. Nitro, possible to have power steering delete, but with AC? Yes, it is possible. Again, if you use that module on any of our speed drives in the listing, you can build it out like that. We can run power steering delete, AC delete, and just relocate the alternator. You name it. It's part of our speed drive being the most versatile accessory drive solution, power steering solution for a 5-liter Coyote engine. We pretty much have just about every combination figured out and available to you. Even if you want to try to use a stock Coyote compressor, even though we have heard of some guys having issues with the cooling as far as a condenser, mixing it with other factory AC condensers, aftermarket ones, and EVAPs. Sometimes there's a little bit of an issue because that stock Coyote compressor wants to work with an expansion valve that you may or may not have. And if your orifice tube is a little bit too small or too big, it could cause a lot of heat in the condenser that's hard to overcome. So keep that in mind. But we do have the option to do an AC delete. So if you're going to do that, you can figure out your belt and work with that. So, but yeah, it was Mr. Nitro. If you go to the naturally aspirated listing of our speed drive, you'll see that there are options there to select. And it'll spit out a part number and a cost for the kit that you're looking for. And we have them in stock, ready to ship. We just got to build your kit. If it shows it's not in stock, it just means we don't have one sitting on the shelf already assembled. We got all the parts here to do it. Vincent Merdala, for my '06 car, do I need to move alternator or leave it how it is in the 11 to 14 cars? Also, any long tube header will work from 11 to 14 car. Yes. The question there, Vincent, is okay. You just asked that question. What do I need to order as far as retaining the 3-valve power steering? So what you're going to want is our speed drive kit for a naturally aspirated Coyote. It's going to be part number PBH 1111. That's going to allow you to reuse your existing power steering pump from your 3-valve, your existing AC compressor from your 3-valve, and it'll relocate your Coyote alternator to make room for that power steering pump. The kit's going to come with tensioners, belts, hardware, everything. So once you order that kit, realistically all you have to do is unbolt the power steering pump, unbolt the AC compressor, remove engine, put brackets on engine, drop it in, and bolt them back up, and then figure out how to mount your power steering reservoir. Your AC system doesn't even have to be opened up, as far as I understand in those installations. But you don't have to modify the lines as far as the high pressure lines and so forth. You may have to do some modifications as far as the feed line back to the reservoir, depending on where you move it. But as far as the high pressure lines and so forth, all that stuff can stay the same. So PBH 1111, I think that kit is going to retail for $749.99. We have it on our website. All of our dealers have it available. Dealers, LMR, Lethal Performance, Beefcake, even the guys out of Stingaholics carry our accessory drive bracket kits. So keep that in mind when you're looking for it. Support our dealers as well, and they can get you set up. I believe LMR stocks them, so keep that in mind as well. Let's see here. Where were we? Vincent, Matt Boo. Boo, awesome. I'm ordering now. Great. Yeah, get that order in. We'll get it shipped out tomorrow for you. No problem at all, Mr. Nitro. Nick Meyer, can we get some steering wheel paddles for the 6R80? I've looked into that, Nick. I don't know the easiest way to go about that because there's so many different steering wheels. You want something that's going to be stationary and the steering wheel move above it. If you mount it with the steering wheel, it's going to go with them. I think the place to look is going to be in the gaming community. In gaming, for the racing steering wheels and simulators, now they use full-size steering wheels, 6-bolt hubs. And those paddles may be something they sell as an accessory. And what's nice about that is they're just going to be momentary buttons. And that's all we need to control shifts in select shift. So I would look up. I tried to find it one day. I didn't really find exactly what I was looking for, but I think it's going to exist out there somewhere. The wireless ones I've seen that use the RF remotes, they're a little delayed. We tried them on a few cars, and the problem was once you opened them up, all they were 3D printed paddles with a little alarm remote, a single clicker. And then that communicated with a module in the console, and then that console piece would wire into the select shift, and then it would ask for the shift, and then it would happen. So you'd end up with one of those things where you click, and then it happened. It was delayed. It wasn't as instant as a factory piece, so we really didn't consider that to be an option. But I think if we can just get a simple paddle that click, that's all we need. And if it's 6-bolt hub, then it's just going to move with the steering wheel. The only danger there is when you go to grab the wheel, if you hit it, even if you're not in select shift, it'll complete that downshift or upshift and then go back to automatic. So you want to make sure the spacing is comfortable so you're not going to hit it accidentally while you're driving. Let's see. Colosurdo. I might be butchering that one. I'm going to be doing a Coyote swap in a 96 Bronco using a 17 F-150 engine Will your power steering bracket work with this engine? Yes, absolutely. It will work with the engine. What I will tell you, our speed drive does require the idler pulley that's found on the Mustang timing cover that the F-150 timing cover doesn't have. They just don't have that on the cover for some reason. They've made them differently. So if you're using just our power steering pump bracket, you could do that, but I think you're going to have some struggles trying to get the belt up to the water pump from that position without that idler. It may not work that well. It will bolt up as far as mounting points and pickup points, but without that idler there, I think you may have some struggles. Um, if you do need a timing cover to make it work with your F-150 engine, we do have them for you. Not only are they Ford factory timing covers, we take the time to go ahead and press in a new seal for the crank. It comes, I believe we offer a crank bolt as well, since you got to replace that when you're doing the swap. And we pre-machine the timing cover for our bracket kit for the speed drive. So it takes out that step of your modification that you have to do during the installation of the bracket kit, and all that's done for $199. So it's not a huge budget hit. It is $200, but if you get it, we try to pack as much value into it as possible, so it's less work on you in particular. Blue 99, sweet, thanks. Planning on having the old girl running in a few months, planning on 1,000+ horsepower. Well, I hope you get there, man. Sounds like a fun ride. Lee Ray, did you say that you had an update on the Whipple A-rib stuff? We have the pulleys, Lee. It might be, you may end up being a little bit of a test mule as far as belt length, but that's something that should be pretty easy to overcome if we decide to do that. We'll need that ATI balancer, 8-rib, and then we can get you the 8-rib power steering pump pulley, water pump pulley that we have to make that work, and we have some idler pulleys. I believe actually the idler pulleys you have will work just fine too. So reach back out to me. I think you reached out to me a week or so ago, and I didn't get back to you on that. I apologize, but we should be able to put something together for you to make that work. Yeah, Nick, 8-rib. All of our Edelbrock and the Gen 5 Whipple stuff is going to have an 8-rib option. And that 8-rib option may coincide with what the Gen 3 Whipples have, because Gen 3 Whipple, Edelbrock 2650, Gen 5 Whipple all use the outer sheath where the power steering pump is. Now, for the Whipples, 8-rib may sound a little weird because everything they offer is 10-rib. Bottom line is we didn't want to go out and manufacture a 10-rib power steering pump pulley. I don't know if it would even work with spacing and everything. So we're going to do 8-rib so that we can use an off-the-shelf power steering pump pulley, and one that also is available in our speed drive stuff, or speed series pulleys, and then be able to work with an aftermarket balancer. Even if you end up with a 10-rib pulley, putting an 8-rib belt on there is not a big deal. So it should work just fine, Nick. Let's see here. Greg Watkins, on an MT82 remote shifter, do they make a shorter remote shifter for the MT82? I believe MGW does make something like that. And there was another company that I saw posted in the Coyote Swap Fox Bodies group the other day that had one. It seemed a little pricey. But basically they take the shifter part and they get rid of the connection point in between and mount it right to the transmission with some hardware. It's got a big old bracket that comes out the back to support it as well. MGW, like I said, they also have something to look at. I would give them a call as well and see what they can produce for you. That's going to be a tough one, because even if you do bring it forward, there's really no guarantee it's going to be the exact position you need it for a certain build. So you may still have to modify the console or floorboard to make it work. It's a lot of gear, and you still need to figure out the drive shaft. So let's see here. Mr. Nitro, what do you see in the new Coyote Swap world for the next year or so? GT500 stuff will probably be something that comes to fruition. It's going to be expensive, so I don't know how many guys are really going to sign up for that unless they're getting it from salvage through places like Midway Mustang or Palmetto Pony Parts or something like that. I would say the newest thing would be probably the vetting of the Gen 3 Coyote Swap stuff. That's probably going to be the next big movement as far as Coyote Swap community. There are things that, outside of the Coyote that may be something to consider, like the Godzilla V8. But again, that's an uncertain future. We don't know exactly how many guys are going to sign up to do something like that, and we'll see what the aftermarket support is for it and how fast it can produce vetted tuning and components and so forth. So we got to keep an eye on those things and make sure that we're not trying to invest a bunch of capital into something that may or may not happen. So we're looking at the 3.5 EcoBoost as something potentially to expand on, but we're just not getting the calls for 3.5 EcoBoost stuff. There's a few of them out there that are doing it. They're figuring it out with what's available. I just don't think it's as strong as Coyote or anywhere near it. Kind of surprised by that, but we'll roll the punches as they come. So, Vincent, is PBH 5000 Gen 1 control pack the only one out there for doing a Gen 1 6R80? Yes, it is. When we developed that control pack, it was because Ford Racing had stopped developing Gen 1 components, and they was already working on the Gen 2. And they kind of divulged to us that they were not going to make a Gen 1 6R80 control pack, and we were already ready to release ours. So we worked together to make sure we weren't stepping on each other's toes there, and came up with the Gen 1 6R80 control pack. So it is available as a control pack. It's also available a la carte. That's one of the problems we have with the Ford Racing control packs, is that if you already have a computer, an O2 sensors, a mass airflow meter, a gas pedal, and you just need the wiring, there's no way to get just the wiring. There are people out there that offer to modify them, but you could end up with a mixed result there, and some issues down the road. Nothing is consistent as a manufactured control pack, which is what we have. We offer the body harness by itself, or we offer it as a complete kit. Whatever you need, we can get you situated. Our body harness not only does 6R80 for Gen 1, but it also does manual transmission as well. So it pretty much works on every single transmission out there if you're using the Gen 1 computer or Gen 1 engine, because the only special transmission that it is set up to work with is the 6R80. Everything else is going to have to use an independent controller. It's going to be a manual, or it's going to be manually shifted. So yeah, man. There's a lot of new stuff maybe potentially coming out. I don't know if Mr. Nitro, in your question, what's coming up next? If you missed the opening of the video, but we're talking about a photo. It looked like a patent photo of a Coyote engine with a transfer case underneath it and a DCT transmission behind it. So, are those things on the horizon? Yes. I think electric stuff might be something that hits our potential. It's pretty far fetched right now, but it'd be neat to see if we could come up with some hybrid swap stuff, maybe. There are a lot of swaps ongoing, so development's kind of always trickling around, and things are popping up. And by the way, if anybody knows anyone who needs a set of ARH 1.75" long tube headers for a Maximum Motorsport K member with mid pipe, call me. The guys at ARH, Nick, Sal, their whole team, they're a great group. We love working with them. Worked with them for years. They've been hit really, really hard by this coronavirus stuff because they're in Deer Park, New York, and unfortunately, a lot of their sales team, including Sal, got COVID-19 and are struggling and getting through it. But they are down to bare minimum as far as staff. And unfortunately, in that shifting, they accidentally sent me an extra set of headers. And I don't want to shove them back into their warehouse because that's the least of their, that's the last thing they need right now. So if anyone's in the market for 1.75" long tube headers from ARH with mid pipe for a Maximum K member, call me. My extension is number 4 on our menu, or email me, info@pbhperformance.com. I will cut a special deal on those to help those guys out at ARH to make sure they don't get stuck with a set of headers. Again, they're struggling as it is. So, let's see, we got some new questions here. Do you need a certain harness for certain manual transmissions? No. All the manual transmission control packs are the same. Doesn't matter what manual you have. In Gen 1, a manual transmission control pack from Ford Racing, and then our body harness are a little bit different. With our body harness, you still need a stock transmission harness for a manual. In a Ford Racing version, they integrated the manual transmission harness into the body harness. So it's one harness for both, even though from the factory it's a separate harness. So keep that in mind. Vincent Murdala, let's see here. You aren't sure about how long it will be till the 0506. I'm not really 100% now. I can tell you that we're going to do everything in our power to get this out as soon as possible. We know everyone's dying for it. We got to make sure it's right. We got to make sure we have all of our ducks in line so we can get it manufactured and that it is a high quality product, the same as all of our other ones. So it's been a little bit of a struggle to do it because we're waiting on the development of a module that'll now not be part of the initial release, but then something you can add on later. That module is going to be important to some lighting stuff, some of the intricate things to do with the CAN bus in the vehicle. So when these first ones that are going out, we're trying to find guys that are really kind of building race cars that aren't really looking for full street stuff, so that they don't feel left out when we come out with the new stuff. But if it's something you're willing to give up, email us, let us know. We'll make sure you get on the list and see if we can get you one of the test pieces when we get it available. Let's see, Mr. Nitro, what sort of power numbers, reliability have you seen out of the Gen 2 F-150 engines? I've seen a lot of Gen 2 F-150s in particular making the same power numbers as Mustang. So I feel like you should be able to expect the same performance from the F-150 engine as far as durability than you would from a Mustang. Are they going to make the same numbers? Probably not, because they do have some differences in the camshafts and intake manifolds, but if you're boosting it, that may or not come into play. And sometimes to get the maximum performance out of a boosted application, you're going to put a cam that's specific to that combination anyway. So that's really not a weak point to consider. They just make a little bit different torque and power in different ranges. Alex Cadell, is there a way to swap a Gen 3 NT82 into a 15 GT to get the downshift rev matching, and what else is going to be needed? Well, that swap, that feature really has nothing to do with the transmission. It has everything to do with the computer. So unfortunately, since we can't really run a Gen 2 engine off a Gen 3 PCM, I don't think that's something you're really going to be able to add in there. Now, there are downshift module boxes, aftermarket universal ones that are available out there that you can put in and tune them yourself. I would look into something like that, but they're really not going to be specific to RPM. I don't think you can tie that in like a factory one. I drove Alex's 18 GT today with a Vortex supercharger on it, and it has that feature, and it is pretty cool. I'm an old school guy. I learned how to heel toe in my driving. I drive my Fox body and anything with a stick that same way. And what I drove today in that 18 GT with that feature, that's just cheating. It's too easy. It might as well be a DCT, because you don't really, I mean, you talk about driving a manual like a man. Well, heel toe, shut that thing off and heel toe like a man. Right? That's a shot at Alex. It is cheating. It's like it does it all for you. It makes it easier. It's gonna make you look like a stud if nobody knows you have that. But and it makes you more consistent because it's computer controlled. But if you're looking for that feature, you may have to get a new car, unfortunately, because even in swaps, because we don't have speed signals and sensors and all that stuff, it's not going to be something we can just add on. Yeah, Alex has a 19. That is correct. Let's see here. Vincent Murdala. So with that harness, we'll be leaving the three valve pedal, 3-valve PCM. No. The idea with our 3-valve harness is that we are going to use those coyote components like the gas pedal, the PCM, and we're going to tie it into your existing body harness on the car. So there's going to be like a jumper harness / body harness that then when you go to do your installation, you'll take your stock fuse block, the big one on the passenger side, apart, remove one of the connectors to get that part of the harness out, and then put ours in. Once you put it in, those fuses will work just like factory, but it's going to be feeding the Coyote computer. And then we're going to feed the body control module all the information that it needs, so that all those functions will work. Where that CAN bus module comes into play is to change some of the information so it's in the right position in the data stream so that everything will work 100%. So unfortunately, that box isn't something that we have developed just yet. So some of those features may be on or off, or maybe triggering a light for now. But we're going to build the harnesses so that when that box becomes available, you can just add it to the existing harness you already have. So that's going to be pretty cool because it's not like you're going to have to redo the whole car. Let's see here. Lee, Mr. Nutchy, yeah, that should be good. Alex has 19, but I'm right. Yeah, I think so. I think I'm right too. Mr. Nitro, Alejandro Flores, what shock struts are you on your Fairmont? I don't know. He may have to chime in on that. I don't remember what he put in that. Oh, actually, I think they're strange. I think the struts are strange, and the rears might be Viking. He may have to correct me on that. And I know he's working on some suspension stuff for the Fairmont. The Fairmont has some really exciting launches. It's pulling the wheels way up in the air. It looks great for photos, but it's not efficient. It's not fast. He's trying to make it probably the fastest TVS Coyote on the planet. So we're going to see what we can do with the suspension. He's got some plans to make some changes out back, get some better bar angle to help it launch. Instead of launching like this, kind of launch and take off flat. That way it's not wasting that energy and forcing it to go up way in the air where you can, crush an oil pan or break some suspension and stuff. Lund Racing, I don't know if you guys ever saw that photo. Lund Racing, which has our 4R200 transmission in it, those guys went full bumper, full in the air, rear wheels off the ground, riding the bumper, and came down and broke both front struts on the way down. So looks really cool. It's going to look great on a t-shirt and a poster. It's going to be a famous photo, but it cost a couple grand and ended their day at the track. So you want to try to make sure that everything's as good as possible, or if not, you're going to have some very exciting times for a split second. Well, let's see here. Vincent Merdala, I will have to buy a Coyote PCM and pedal separate. Yes. If you're going to be running a Coyote engine, you're going to want a Coyote PCM. Gas pedal as well. Gas pedal, what's nice, between the years, it's going to bolt right up just like the 05 to 09 pedals. It'll work. We have those pedals available here. We have PCMs available. The nice thing about PCMs, and if you don't know, if you're looking to do a manual, you can use a used PCM. You know who can't use a used PCM is somebody with a stock vehicle. So if you have an 11 to 14 Mustang and the PCM went bad, and you went to the junkyard and you wanted to buy a PCM, the PCM they're going to sell you, you can't reflash 100%. Once you put a VIN number in there, it's locked. It's burned into it. So for you to be able to use it, then you'd have to find the exact calibration that you had before. That's preferred. You can use a different one if you wanted to. But then the VIN number that's in there would then have to be programmed into the ABS module, into the instrument cluster, and the keys need to be reprogrammed. So a lot of times, the junkyards don't value used PCMs that high. So they're only worth core value. Well, for you, none of that stuff's going to be a problem because we don't have to program any of that stuff. So go get a used PCM. They're $150 typically, $100 to $150. We do have a list on our website under the tuning section for our PATS Delete. That list gives you calibration ID and ID number of all the PCMs from a Mustang that has 6R80 in it. So you can use that same list to determine if the PCM you have is from a Gen 1 manual Mustang. Now, I don't have a list for the F-150 computers, unfortunately, but you would try to track down a Mustang PCM manual. If it's 6R80, you got to get one off that list, or else you're not going to have the programming for a 6R80. Let's see here. Nick Meyer, 99 to 04 wiring. What are most doing in terms of the swap Coyote ECM controlling the fuel pump fan, etc., or are they leaving a decent amount of factory wiring? Concerned about PATS? Just order Dakota. you should be able, if, I mean, the Pats, I'm not sure the Pats is really going to become a problem for you, Nick, in that case, because the way the Pats works, it knocks out your ignition signal so it won't start. And that's being controlled by the Coyote PCM. There's no way what you have left in the car is going to cause that to happen. And since you have aftermarket gauges, it's not going to be triggering a light or anything. So I really don't think you're going to have a problem there in particular. The only time it really becomes a problem is if you're putting those gauges in a 99 to 04 car that's a stock computer. And in that case, then you have to go in and disable PATs because you're removing the cluster. The cluster is where that memory is stored for the passive anti-theft system. So if you take it out completely and replace it with a new gauge, the computer is looking for that signal. It's not getting it. It's not reading the key to then tell the computer it's okay, let the ignition fire. So by using the aftermarket Dakota Digital gauges and a Coyote PCM, there's nothing there that I could say is going to stop you from being able to use it. You're welcome. Our Closurdo. I think I said it right that time. Root beer. Hey Frank, is it possible to add a second fuel pump to a 17 GT? I get fuel starvation sometimes in greater than 1G turns on the road course. So you're on the road course, you're getting basically fuel starvation on the one side of the tank. That really shouldn't happen. There's some baffling in there, and you have a basket. So if you are having fuel starvation issues, and that side of the tank is going dry, make sure you don't have an issue with the jet pump that keeps both sides full. One of the things you may want to look into, I believe Holly makes it, it's called the Hydra Mat. And the Hydra Mat should be able to connect to the bottom of the pump, and then it's a huge screen that you can lay down on the floor of the tank, and it soaks up fuel from every corner possible. That might be a solution. If you can get inside the tank and do some modifications, you can also go as far as getting the yellow foam that they sell for fuel cells to try to baffle it a little bit. A second fuel pump, probably, I don't think that's going to help because you have a pickup problem. So putting a pump outside of the tank or putting a second one in there probably isn't going to give you the results you need. Now, we'll say that if you go with an aftermarket hat, let's say a 4 Innovations hat with their aftermarket pumps from T1 or TI, those pumps are probably more suitable to add that Hydra Mat too. So keep that in mind. I would look into that maybe potentially. That way, if you can just get a pickup screen or put a pickup tube on it so that it's always located in a pocket of fuel, that might be something to look at as well if it's really a big issue. I know in fuel cells we have trap doors. So in my race car, there's a trap door. It's in the back of the tank. That's usually where the forces of the car are when it's driving and turning. And there's yellow foam everywhere to make sure the fuel moves slowly through the tank so that you don't have as much slosh. Those are the typical remedies to a problem like that. So I'd look into that because you're not going to find a racing tank that goes in place of what you have with more baffling. That's just not going to be an option. Let's see here. Vincent Merdala, what about motor mounts and trans cross member? Motor mounts, you're going to be able to use the 4.6 motor mounts on your Coyote, and the cross member, well, that depends on the transmission you use. And if you're going to reuse your 3650 transmission, reuse your drive shaft, reuse your cross member, reuse your shifter, clutch cable, or clutch hydraulic stuff. All that will stay the same. If it's automatic, that 5R55E, that's got to go. You got to go 6R80. If you go that route, you need 11 to 14 stuff to outfit it. In that case, one-piece drive shaft from an 11 to 14 as well. Renee, or 59. I have a Gen 3 Coyote GT Auto for my swap. Would I have to change the engine harness to a manual? Yes, you would. If it's if you got a Mustang engine, which I think you said you do, didn't say for sure. If you got a Mustang engine, you'll need to get a new engine harness for manual because the transmission part of it is now intertwined again, like Gen 3. Actually, no, it's separate. So you get a separate transmission harness for manual. That way you have all the connections for, that way you don't have all the auto functions and stuff like that, that it's sending information into the PCM that doesn't recognize it. Insane Mustang 11 to 14 GT500 PCM, and your 6R80 harness is the best way to go for a 5.4 4-valve swap with a 6R80. Have you seen if the F-150s have similar setups with the 3-valve S197s computer-wise? As far as running a GT500 engine, our body harness is definitely probably going to be the only manufactured solution for you. It will work with a GT500 PCM. It has to be 11 to 14 for it to work because that's when they shared the same PCMs as the Coyotes. As far as applying stuff like that to a 3-valve, it can be done. We have confidence that it can be done. We haven't had a chance to do it, but we did a 4-valve Cobra where we run the Cobra engine off of the Coyote PCM, allowing us to have a 6R80 and functioning 110%. That being said, the 3-valve engine, close enough to Coyote, close enough that we can hardwire it into the car, there is bound to be a path to run the 3-valve engine with a Coyote PCM. If you can do that, you can have your 6R80 behind a 3-valve. Trick to that's going to be, you got to have a Coyote throttle body or a GT500 throttle body. I know the GT's 3 valves had a dual bore throttle body, so probably using a stock dual 60 throttle body or equivalent as an aftermarket version or bigger one will be step number 1. And then making sure that all the sensors are reading properly into a harness. It's got to be a Coyote harness. I would think you probably want 11 to 14 engine harness to then work the 3-valve engine, but you may want a GT500 harness. We'd have to double check and see. Both might be an option there. So there is a chance. We just don't have a kit for that, or really a ton of tech to give you on that. Vincent Murdala is going 6R80. So if you're going 6R80, 11 to 14 cross member, 11 to 14 one-piece drive shaft, shifter. Try to use your 3-valve shifter, and then adapt the cable and so forth. Some of the components we have, and that should get you close to home. Transmission cooler fittings from us, transmission cooler. You should be good. If you look on our website under 6R80 swap components, we have a cross-member kit on there with all the hardware. So it makes it a little bit easier if you want to go brand new, if you can't source the old stuff or find the hardware for it. R4, super chat here. Thanks for PBH for awesome customer service and products. Your 11 to 14 harness Dakota Digital Dash saved me so many headaches for my 5.8 GT500 swap in my SN95 Cobra. Lund should be completed soon. That sounds awesome, man. Well, thank you for supporting the channel. Thanks to you for choosing PBH. Send us some pictures of that swap. I'd love to take a look at it and see how it looks in the car. GT500 swaps are being done. GT500 engines into Fox bodies, into SN95s and new edges. They're just not as popular. There's really no page dedicated to it. So put those pictures out there. Let people see what it looks like. It'd be interesting if you could, what you do for headers. Because that's the number one question I get on GT500 engine swaps. Did you have to modify a set of GT500 aftermarket headers? Was it a pain in the ass? Was it really easy? Or somebody made you something custom? Let us know in the regular chat there what you came up with on that solution. Because there really isn't anything manufactured for that. Let's see here. Alec Cadell, has there ever been a 5.8 GT500 swap into an S550? Not that I know of, but it shouldn't be too hard. I think you're going to end up with pretty much a race car, though. You're not probably going to have a factory car with a GT500 engine in there. Potentially, just S550, they're kind of a pain when it comes to swapping stuff into the S550s. So potentially, maybe there's a way to control. No, you can't control it with a Gen 2 computer, I don't think so. That'd be a tough one, man. That'd be one that you can get done, but you know, gauges and all this other stuff, that's going to be stuff you're going to have to figure out. You might be on an island on that one trying to get it squared away. We're going to answer a few more questions here, and then I got to kind of shut things down for the night, and we'll pick up next week. We are going to have the Edelbrock 2650 video released tomorrow. It's already on our YouTube channel. We're just going to spread the word about it, so if you want to take a look at that tonight, it is available to watch. Leave us some comments on there. Let us know how the video looks to you. If you have any questions about that setup, is the Edelbrock 2650 be interested in using? It's it's kind of the new kid on the block when it comes to superchargers. So take a look at that. Let us know what you think of that setup. Let's see. Alex Cadell has their. Okay, I already answered that. Sorry. Mr. Nitro, I have a Zephyr. I'm planning on a Coyote swap. Any experience with a Holly or Aeromotive retrofit fuel module? Since later EFI tank won't fit, I'd rather not have a fuel cell. On the Fairmont, we did make a huge mess and cut it all up and put a Fox body style tank in there. You can use the Stealth hat on that older tank. The trick to it is you got to find a flat surface on the tank, somewhere near the deepest part of the tank itself, so that you make sure that it's getting as much fuel as possible and doesn't run dry on you. So keep that in mind as you're planning it. I think you can use the Stealth hat. You're going to want to measure how deep the tank is just to make sure it's deep enough to be able to put that assembly in there. Sometimes if it's too shallow, it's a little bit of a problem. You also, again, need a flat surface on the top of the tank for it to bolt to. It can't be domed or a crease or a recess. It's got to be flat. Once you cut it, they do give you a nice big fat donut to kind of take up some of the ridges and kind of like the support bends. What do they call it? Man, I forget now. It's like when they bead roll a piece of aluminum. They do that to the factory tanks to give them some strength. It'll work and compensate for that as long as it's not too aggressive. If it's something that's like this deep, no problem. If it's this deep, yeah, we got a problem. It's not going to seal. So keep that in mind as you're planning it out. Let's see here. Eric Copeland, hey there. I'm swapping a 2009 F-150 that had a 4.6 in it. I'm using your general control pack with a 14 F-150 Coyote. Will the gas pedal that's already in the truck work? Probably not. In fact, you're going to want to try to match up PCM to gas pedal. So try to get F-150 gas pedal in that case to work with that PCM that you have. Vice versa if it's Mustang. So keep that in mind. Most likely the 3-valve pedal isn't going to be 100% the same. I know when we develop the harness for the S197 Mustangs, we have to run a connector all the way down to the pedal so we can use a Coyote pedal. Vincent Murdala, you guys sell cooling, you said? I don't reuse 3-valve cooling lines. Okay, yeah. We have a universal transmission cooler kit, and we have the AN adapters for the 6R80 and the 10R80, so you can make that all work together. The factory lines, if you can make those work, awesome. Most cases, guys are going to opt to just do custom ones because those lines are going to be bent to fit around what was in there, and it may end up running into something else, and you don't want to end up having to just cut a line, weld a bung on it, make custom lines, and then weld another bung on it over here. If you want to do it that way, that's fine. At the end of the day, all you have to do is make connection on 2 points for it to work. But what I would do is if you're going to put a fresh transmission in there, put a fresh cooler. You do that when you service a transmission anyway. If I got a blown up transmission and a new one, I put a new transmission cooler in just to make sure there's no debris in that cooler that'll contaminate my new transmission and hurt it. So that's the other thing to consider. But we do have a transmission cooler kit. You don't have to use our cooler kit. You can use our fittings and adapt any cooler that you like. If you have a different design or don't like the fan version or whatnot, that's totally up to you. We do separate the two. Okay. Insane Mustang. Thanks, Frank. I think my grocery list is done for now. Yeah, that thing can snowball pretty quick. Don't ask me how I know. But thank you for supporting the channel and watching tonight. Thanks for choosing PBH, Insane, and let us know if you need anything else. JC350, late to the party. You caught it a little bit in time. I'm running over by about 20 minutes, but we're going to get off of here pretty soon after I answer something here for R4. R4 is updating us on his GT500 swap that he did on his SN95 Cobra. Had to get the custom-made headers. You can fit 96 to 04 headers if you modify the flange holes at the bottom and massage the engine bay a little. Wasn't worth the headache, though, and not as clean. Well, I mean, at least you get something there that's custom fit to the car. One of the things, if someone's in a situation like that, to consider, companies like ARH, companies like Ultimate Headers, Jim Browning, if you have the ability to get them the car and the setup, they will make custom headers for you. Potentially, that means that moving forward, others may be able to order it. I sent my own car to Deer Park, New York, to Nick and those guys up at ARH. Steve Doughton helped me out with that, and I got the first set of ARH inch and 7/8 long tubes for a Maximum Motorsports K member because even though the BBKs were an option for road racing, I was a little worried about them staying together. So I had to get a quality header on there, and we wanted to come up with a solution that was just top shelf, and Nick and those guys delivered. So keep that in mind if anybody's out there trying to do a custom project, something that might be duplicated. A lot of times those guys won't charge you extra if you get them the car, and they're going to give you the set of headers custom made to your car just so they have a chance to go ahead and have it for the next guy that they can manufacture it and sell it. Mr. Nitro, thanks for all the concise answers. Always appreciate it. You're welcome, man. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hopefully, we'll see you again here on the live channel next Wednesday. We're going to try to do this every Wednesday night, so make sure you tune in. Vincent, going from the bottom, I can install long tubes before it goes in the car. Easiest way, right? Yeah. What we do: jack stands, K member, engine, long tube headers, transmission, also a jack stand in the back, and we lower the car onto the K member, bolt it up, and we're done. If we got to move the powertrain around a little bit as we're dropping it on, if we're using a lift, we'll bring the cherry picker in, pick up the whole powertrain. It allows us to move things around as we drop it together, and then we bolt it up. After you bolt it together, make sure you spend the time, make sure it's squared up. If you look at Maximum Motorsports website and their directions on how to install a K member, they give you the right way to measure and square a K member in a car. If a K member is off to the right or the left, it can affect steering. You can end up with a little bit of a dog leg effect. So make sure it's square. It's not that hard to do. If you have a lift, do it. You just have to get some plumb bobs, piece of tape, some Sharpie, and maybe an extra helping hand from a friend. And just basically hang them from the pickup points on the chassis down to the floor, mark them, take some measurements, and then do the math and adjust as needed. Alex Cadell, is there a significant gain in swapping a 5.2 with conventional crank and the Ford Racing Gen 2 cams in my 15? I asked the 5.8 swap because I was curious. Okay. Yeah, I mean, no one's really asked me about that 5.8 swap. It's doable. It's just, if it was a race car and you had that laying around, it probably wouldn't be a big deal. But for a street car, I'd probably stick with Coyote stuff to make sure everything works seemingly, unless you want to try to figure that stuff out on your own. As far as significant gain swapping a 5.2 conventional crank before racing Gen 2 cams, I don't know about significant. It's not really a sleeve motor, so it's not going to be the ultimate in durability for big power, but you're bound to pick up a few ponies from the extra displacement. The 5.2 stuff, conventional crank, that's pretty much what we're getting in the GT500 now. So it should be durable enough for up to 1,000 horsepower, and then after that, you got to sleeve it. If you're not planning on making more than 1,000 horsepower, then it's an option. The Illuminator is just as good of an option, I would say. If you're going to make more than 1,000 horsepower, you need to do a custom build with somebody. As far as Gen 2 cams, I didn't know they had any special or high performance cams. You'll have to elaborate that for me, but Gen 2 stock cams would be okay. If you're trying to make big power, that's one place to pick up some extra ponies. It's, you'll spend a couple bucks to get it, but it'd be worth doing aftermarket cams at least, specific to your boost setup. Let's see here. Hobby. Hey Frank, does the PBH 11111 include the throttle body spacer? I noticed the instructions before 220 include the instructions for it. The kit I got does not have the spacer. It does not. We did update our alternator bracket. It is a little bit smaller now, and it allows us to get rid of the throttle body spacer. That's helped us keep pricing the same as material has increased in cost. Getting rid of that throttle body spacer and the hardware and the O-ring has helped us keep things at the same prices they're at now. So that's why there's a production date split. You'll notice now that your 1111 kit has that different bracket kit in there. And then moving forward, if you go to put a supercharger on there, you have now the 5-bolt alternator bracket. If you go to a Roush or a VNP blower, you're going to have to get the bigger upfit kit that includes the older style alternator bracket. With the Whipple, the Edelbrocks, you always have to change that anyway, so keep that in mind. Let's see here. Vincent, I think you're going to be my last question tonight. The 3-valve auto shift cable fit into the 6R80. I think you can make it work. Worst case scenario, you can use an 11 to 14 shifter. It should work with that console. If you go that route, then you can use the stock cable. You can use the stock levers and everything. The big question there is the console. You may have to make a custom boot. I don't know if the actual chrome ring snaps down 110%, but worst case scenario, a custom boot isn't the end of the world. So you can easily mount one of those in there. Go to a upholstery guy to do it. There's a bunch of universal ones available online as well. So it's the 5R55E cable. We've made it work before our 70W transmissions. It might be a little bit of a dance to make it work with a 6R80. So you may end up having to make some custom lever modifications and so forth. It might be easier to use a Gen 1 transmission, Gen 1 11 to 14 Mustang shifter and cable. Hobby, hey, you're welcome, Hobby. Let's see here. The Ford, okay. The Ford Racing cams are GT350 spec. Okay, GT350 cams would have the 5.0 firing order. I imagine that would pay some benefits to you, man. I mean, if that's the use you're going to have it for. I know on a GT350, if you brought it to me and we put 10, 11 pounds of boost through it, they make a heap of power, more than stock GT stuff. So the cams have to be part of that. Ford didn't really skimp in the development of that GT350 engine. So anything that comes out of there, you apply it to your 5.0, should work just fine. Look at cost and compare it to maybe a custom set of comp cams or a custom grind from somebody that's specific to your use. But if they're more affordable, I don't see why it wouldn't help. Any which way you go with camshafts, if it's NA, you're probably going to be robbing some torque in exchange for high RPM horsepower. When it comes to boost, if it's a PD blower, that really doesn't matter. So, all right. AB, will you price match a Gen 1 control pack manual? Email us and see if we can do it or not. Sometimes we can, depending on the pricing and so forth and what's available. I know we can't price match our control pack to a Ford Race control pack. Mainly, I don't know how you could do that because Ford Racing doesn't offer 6R80 version. But if you're looking for Ford Racing Gen 1 manual control pack, email us, info@pbhperformance.com, and I'll see what we can do. Santo S550, last question here. Is there a trans brake for a 10R80? I don't know, man. We haven't done one. I know that. That might be a question for your tuner to see if there's one available out there, one that they know they can calibrate with. In the Gen 2 cars, trans brakes were a little tricky. They took a lot of tuning to make sure they're right. A lot of guys hurt cars and transmissions figuring that out. All right, guys. I'm going to shut things down for tonight. Went an hour and a half, a little bit over our time, but no problem. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Make sure you leave a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the notification button as well on our channel. When you hit the notification button, the box comes up. Make sure you select all. That way you get all of our notifications on YouTube as well. I want to thank everybody for joining us in the chat. I think we got up to 40 people again tonight, which is awesome. It's flattering. Take care of yourselves out there. This virus is no joke. Make sure you're taking the precautions you need to keep yourself and family and friends and co-workers and everyone you know safe. I myself had a little bit of a scare with COVID-19, got tested, got the negative results, so we're all good. So make sure you take care of yourselves out there. Don't be afraid to quarantine yourself if you feel like you may have it. If you need anything additional from us, email us info@pbhperformance.com. I'm guilty. I was a little busy over the weekend dealing with the COVID-19 stuff, and I wasn't able to get to some emails. And we're backed up on emails, so I'm catching up to everything now from yesterday. And we got some new stuff going on the website that we had to update, plus that Edelbrock video that we just released. So make sure you check it out. Again, leave a like on the videos. Let us know what you think about them. If there's a video you want us to cover or do, send us some emails. Post it up in the chat. Put it in the comments of the video so we can get to that and maybe get the answers that you need. Other than that, guys, we'll see you next Wednesday, same time here on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us tonight. Thanks for all the questions and the information. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. Peace.